Daniel Jones might be more of a possibility for the Baltimore Ravens than you might think after being cut by the New York Giants. We talk about that. Injuries piling up for the team ahead of their Monday Night Football matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers, and so much more coming up on a bonus edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today on this bonus edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens with the part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe. Also in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast, plus more, Monday through Friday, regularly scheduled programming. Plus, we do bonus episodes like this. We go live after every single Ravens game, piece of big news, and so much more. So if you have a friend or a family member who also would enjoy some Ravens coverage, be sure to send them over here our way. Thank you to all the everydayers out there, first-time listeners, and people who are in the middle of those two categories. Today's bonus edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Ravens have a big Monday night game with the Chargers coming up. We'll talk about injury status right now as it stands. Recording this on late Friday night, early Saturday morning, because the Ravens certainly have some injuries to monitor as they wrap up their practice schedule today. But we're going to talk about a situation that has recently developed, and that is Daniel Jones. Yes, that Daniel Jones, New York Giants Daniel Jones, who was released by the team on Friday. And he actually might be more of a possibility for the Ravens as the backup quarterback spot than you might think. So we'll talk about that whole situation and a lot more regarding that. And then we'll also dive into some Ravens news, notes, and quotes to round out the show. If you're an everydayer, just like old time's sake, doing news, notes, and quotes on the show. So let's just dive right into it here with Daniel Jones. An intriguing possibility, I would say. Obviously, Daniel Jones is a guy that didn't necessarily, look, he earned an extension after what he did in 2022. The extension they gave him was certainly a little rich, and a little, by that I mean a lot. He's not necessarily that guy. He's not that guy. Now, the big thing with Daniel Jones is, if you've been listening to me here, you know that he is the reason that my favorite, not favorite stat exists. The only quarterback in the NFC to ever beat Lamar Jackson. Only NFC quarterback to beat Lamar Jackson as a starter. It's incredible. It's out of everybody, all the great NFC quarterbacks that have come through to Baltimore or Lamar Jackson's gone to play, Daniel Jones was the only guy. So the Giants cut him loose. They were having him play scout team safety. They benched him. He went out there, made a statement saying, it's been an honor to play for the Giants. Just a weird situation. So now Jones has an opportunity to go and sign with a contender or go sign somewhere to play and kind of round out the rest of the season here. Now, again, a lot of people are saying, not at that salary, that contract, no way. Daniel Jones, obviously for Baltimore to even have a shot at getting him, if they want him, he has to clear waivers. I'd be floored if a team claimed that contract. Obviously, I think that we're having this conversation based off of, okay, he'd be an option on the veteran minimum for the remainder of the season, right? The minimum contract. So for Daniel Jones, I know that he's not this flashy name in terms of, he's been this great quarterback in the league. He could be great backing up Lamar Jackson. But his style actually fits what the Ravens do. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not sold on Josh Johnson if Lamar Jackson goes down. Now, let's get this out of the way. Let's just get this fact out of the way right now. We can be honest about the situation, especially with the way this defense has played this season, even though they had a good game against Pittsburgh last week. This team is not winning anything without Lamar Jackson. All right, we can admit that. But Daniel Jones gives you more of a chance to win something than Josh Johnson does, in my opinion. I think that Daniel Jones would be an upgrade at backup quarterback compared to Josh Johnson. There's no shade to Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson obviously has had a solid NFL career, moving around a bunch of places. He's done his dues and had a lot of opportunities. But I think that with Daniel Jones, the rushing ability is there, RPO game, everything that they want to do with Lamar and Derrick Henry, it'd be a massive step down. Like, I'm talking like steep. We're talking ceiling is up here, all the way up top for this Ravens team right now. That ceiling and the floor would just drop to the ground. But again, I think it's higher than what it is with Josh Johnson, because I think you can run a lot of the stuff that you want to run with Daniel Jones as opposed to Josh Johnson, who, at the end of the day, he's, mid 30s now. That's the athleticism is gone, and he's not someone that is a threat there. At least Daniel Jones is somewhat of a threat. I know that the turnovers are real, the throwing ability, he has great games and then he'll just do terrible things with the football. But I think that this is more of a possibility than people think it is for the Ravens right now. Now, do I expect it to happen? No, I don't expect it to happen, but it certainly is a possibility. There are multiple things now, because Daniel Jones, he's going to want an opportunity to get to pick the best situation for himself once I'm saying once he clears waivers. I just think it's going to happen. So once he clears waivers, right? Because there are opportunities across the league where he could go in and start immediately. I mean, the Raiders are one. It'd be hilarious if he went to Dallas, especially with the Thanksgiving coming up and that being a short turnaround. But he could go to Dallas with Jerry Jones and start immediately there. Or he could try to rebuild his values back up in a good situation and see what happens. We've seen quarterbacks do that. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. That has happened, and there have been success stories with some of those guys doing that. So I wouldn't be shocked if Daniel Jones took the one path or he took the other path. I think there are multiple opportunities for him. And I'm not sitting here getting all excited saying, oh, well, okay, yeah, if the Ravens get Daniel Jones, they're winning the Super Bowl. I mean, again, we can be real about it. If Daniel Jones or Josh Johnson, even if they don't get Daniel Jones, if either of those guys has to start for the Ravens because Lamar Jackson, something happened to him, knock on wood, there it is. Knock on wood, it doesn't. But if that happens, Ravens are in trouble, right? Ravens are in trouble. It just is what it is. This team has won Super Bowls with quarterbacks that have been considered far, below the standard that you feel like you need. And obviously in 2000, that historic Ravens defense did the job. And hey, Joe had a crazy run in 2012, and he was awesome in that run. But to me, I think that you need Lamar to win a Super Bowl. Daniel Jones gives you an opportunity, It's almost kind of like what happened a couple of years ago where they almost beat the Bengals in the wild card round in Cincinnati. If they had beaten Cincinnati, they'd probably lose in the divisional round next weekend. But with Daniel Jones, he gives you an opportunity to go down that path. With Josh Johnson, I'm not very sure they win a playoff game. It just is what it is. And so at that point, talking about seeding, talking about draft position, whatever, but the Ravens are always going to look at opportunities to improve their team. And so we can look at their salary cap situation. They want to commit money. It's not going to be a lot. I mean, we're in week 12, essentially almost week 13 here, could be an option for the Ravens because it would be an upgrade, in my opinion. Is it this big flashy signing that would change everything? No, not in the slightest. But I see a lot of people, I guess, just dismissing it outright. And look, whether you do want Daniel Jones or you don't want Daniel Jones, and, if you're on YouTube with us, put it in the comments. Do you want Daniel Jones? Do you not? If you're in audio form, you can hit me up on social media and tell me your thoughts on it. I think that there are a lot of differing opinions on it. And hey, I see an argument for both sides. But with the way that Daniel Jones operates and his skill set, I think it'd be foolish not to at least kick the tires on it and see what's going on with Daniel Jones. Because again, he's someone that is a high mistake player, didn't work out. I mean, in order for the Giants to move off of him like that, they were done. And I think Daniel Jones was done with them. Just a bad situation all around. And if he's the guy that's starting for you, you're probably in trouble. You probably don't have high expectations because your quarterback's probably injured or something's happened. But it gives you a better shot, in my opinion, than Josh Johnson. And I feel a lot more confident in the quarterback room of Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, and Josh Johnson as opposed to what the Ravens have now. So could happen, could not expecting it to, but it's a possibility. That's the word we're using here, right? Possibility. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the injuries piling up for this Baltimore Ravens team and where they could go if some of their stars have to miss Monday Night Football. Stay tuned. We'll have to get to on the show. First, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I have to say thank you to my family here. They've been so supportive of me, brothers, parents, everybody, and I really wouldn't be where I am today without them. And this month really is all about gratitude. And along with the people I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thank enough, and that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. Therapy has so many benefits, from learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries to empowering you to become the best version of yourself. And it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma, it's for everyone. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And the show is brought to you by Game Time. The hype of watching basketball live is incredible. It's such an awesome atmosphere. You got celebrity sightings, the sound from the court and the feel of the crowd. And for me, whenever the Nuggets are in the area here, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy. I try to go and see them, and I'm looking forward to doing that this year and years in the future as well. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the FUP to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And Game Time has tickets for all events, concerts, shows, and more, not just sports. So for this Ravens and Chargers game out in LA, Game Time Picks is the place to be. You can look at super deals and other tiers of deals as well. Plus, the app has so many great features like Game Time Picks, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. We're back for our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this bonus edition of the show. Again, appreciate everybody for being here today, making Locked On Ravens about the part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Coming up on 10,000 subscribers in video form on YouTube, so hit that like and subscribe button. Again, my first ever episode doing this in video form in 2021. I said that I would wear a Dixie Cup patterned outfit once we hit 10,000 subscribers, and we're less than 500 away from that goal, which is so crazy. We built up an awesome community in video form, but that audio form community also has been so incredible. That was obviously formed from the very, very start before we started up video a couple of years after that. So be sure to follow along and subscribe in audio form as well. Now, the Ravens with this Chargers game. Huge matchup for the team. And as we talked about with Sam and Njoku yesterday, if you haven't checked out that episode, be sure to do that. We talked about the Ravens and their AFC North chances and Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's give a round of applause to Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns for helping out the Ravens a little bit. Crazy game, snow game. It looked like they were playing in a snow globe over there in Cleveland, and Cleveland helps the Ravens out a little bit. You know, Jameis goes and steals the hearts of the Ravens a couple weeks prior, and then goes and does it to Pittsburgh. You know, a game that I think a lot of people thought it was a trap spot for Pittsburgh, much like people thought it was a trap spot for Baltimore with Cleveland, and Jameis Winston delivers. So for me, at least, I'm feeling really good about Baltimore's AFC North chances now, especially because I think Pittsburgh is a little more of a pretender than a contender with that offense. The defense is good. Pittsburgh's defense is great, but that offense doesn't inspire me whatsoever. And I think Baltimore, my prediction is Baltimore wins the rematch, and that's what it's going to come down to win the AFC North. But long way to go. Got to look to what's ahead and in front of you, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the Ravens injury report, tad bit concerning heading into Monday's action. Now, the Ravens do have one more day of practice today, obviously with them playing on Monday and not Sunday, so everything is kind of scaled back a day. You know, it gets pushed back. But Baltimore's injury report, so essentially their second of the week. Nelson Aguilar returned to practice after he had an illness that he had, so he's back at practice. But the Ravens had Rashad Bateman, new absence with a knee injury. Tyler Linderbaum, new injury with a back. And then Nick Samek, new injury with a chest. So Bateman and Linderbaum did not practice. Samek was limited. Second straight day of no practice for Travis Jones, Sanusi Kane, Arthur Millette, and Roquan Smith. That's big. Both sides of the ball, big playmakers potentially being out. talk about this a little more in the final part of the show, but we heard Zach Orr talk about how if Roquan is not able to play, he's going to be linebacker by committee in some way, shape, or form. So I know a lot of people might not be very inspired by Malik Harrison going out there. Is it going to be Chris Board? Does Kristen Welch get some opportunities? How is that going to look? Obviously, Trent Simpson would be the main guy there, but it'd be tough to lose Roquan. And I know that, look, we've talked a lot about Roquan's struggles for Roquan's standards this season, but that'd be a massive loss because even Roquan playing poorly is better than a lot of middle linebackers in the league. And when we say, oh, well, this guy, like, for example, guys we have high standards for, like a Roquan Smith, he still is playing decent for, the average linebacker standards, right? He's playing pretty good for the average linebacker standards. But for Roquan standards, what we've come to expect from Roquan, it's been tough. But he had his best game of the season against Pittsburgh last week before having to leave the game with the hamstring injury. And hamstrings can linger. Calves can linger. Those types of injuries, they can stick with you for a couple of weeks. And hopefully, obviously, if he doesn't practice today, I'm assuming, and if you're watching this after the final injury report comes out for the Ravens and Roquan's already been ruled out, then that's kind of what I'm going with here. If you haven't guessed, is if Roquan is, did not participate 3 straight days, the Ravens could rule him out or just rule him as doubtful if they feel like it could be some game time thing, or we know that Baltimore does like to use any competitive advantage they can get with these injuries. But it'd be tough and definitely concerning that both Bateman and Linderbaum were added to the injury report and didn't practice on Friday. That's difficult. Does that mean that they got injured in practice and, they weren't able to go, or is it precautionary? If it was precautionary, why didn't they, not practice on Thursday? What was that? Or Wednesday? The Ravens have practiced Wednesday through Saturday here. So it's stuff to monitor, and obviously at the time of this recording, I don't have all the information present. We'll do another bonus show tomorrow most likely, and we can kind of give an update on everybody and go through the actual game status injury designations for guys. But this is kind of, we've been talking about how for the Ravens having a bye week so late, they've kind of gotten by injury-wise, but this is a team that needs the bye week badly. Week 14 bye week is really, really, really late. Really late. And obviously it's going to be a nice little reset when it comes. But at this point, you're just kind of waiting and you're like, come on, is it here now? Is it here yet? Or it's almost like it's in the car when you were younger and you're like, all right, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And it's like, no, almost. No, almost. And you keep asking and everybody, oh, come on, we're almost there. Just hold on. But you're not there yet. You want it to happen, but it's not happening. Ravens are close, but they have to get there. But the thing is, you don't want to limp into it. That's the problem. And as you play consecutive games like this, Ravens will have a short week next week against the Eagles. That'll be tough. And then the bye week hits, and that'll be they're like, okay, a little bit of rest. They had the mini bye week after Cincinnati on Thursday night a couple weeks ago, and they have the big one coming up. So it's going to be really important that this team gets their bye week and that they don't have too many injuries heading into it. But at the end of the day, you've gone so long without that big rest that it's starting to pile up on guys, and rightfully so. But again, guys like Roquan, Travis Jones would be huge for the pass rush. Hopefully, these guys will be able to play. I'm not anticipating everybody does, but hopefully a lot of them are able to suit up and go. Coming up with the final part of the show, we will get into some Ravens news, notes, and quotes to round out the show. Stay tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by Bilt. With the seasons changing, I'm already dreaming of a warm weather getaway. I love using points for travel, and I'm always looking for ways to earn more to book my next flight. Here's a life hack for you. Bilt lets you earn points on rent payments and redeem them towards flights, hotels, and a lot more. One of your biggest investments should get you more than just a roof over your head. Let me explain. There's no cost to join Bilt, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Bilt points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Bilt points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Bilt members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points on your rent payments today. We're back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher here with you on this bonus edition of the show. Ravens and Chargers matching up on Monday Night Football. Still a couple of days to go, but the anticipation, everybody's talking about the horrible John versus Jim. And I think this game, as I've talked about, if you've been listening to me all week, I've been saying this game has massive playoff implications, especially if the Ravens don't win the AFC North. But again, with that Pittsburgh loss to Cleveland, a lot of people, myself included, feeling a lot better about that possibility. Now, diving into some Ravens news, notes, and quotes to round out the show. I want to start with Zach Orr, talking a bit about his defense. And one of the big question marks, or at least points a lot of people are talking about right now, is that other corner spot next to Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. Both Humphrey and Wiggins have been awesome this season, but it's been a tough year for Brandon Stephens. They bring in Trey White from the Los Angeles Rams. Look, I wasn't expecting much, but I'm so happy Trey White had the game that he had against Pittsburgh, and even though it wasn't a losing effort, Trey White did awesome. 2 big pass breakups on George Pickens, and Zach Orr said about Trey White, he's real pleased with what he saw. He's a pro's pro and complimented him on a bunch of different things. And so I think that when you're talking about how the Ravens should approach that moving forward, and we're kind of doing some community stuff here on Locked On Ravens and putting out some questions every day in the community tab. The question that I asked for yesterday, or I guess for today technically, was, well, for the quarterback spot next to Marlon and Nate, who would you put in that spot? Would it be Brandon Stephens? Would it have been Trey White? Or would it have been a combination of both? Which one? Brandon Stephens has 3% of the vote right now. 3%. Trey White, 69%, and combination of both, 27%. So seems like people are ready for a change there. It's obviously been a tough year for Brandon, and him not getting his head around for the ball and giving up a bunch of big plays. Hasn't been as bad as some of the stats or even the eye test might tell you, but again, it's been a steep drop off from what we saw from him last year. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So that's something that is going to have to be monitored, because he's been letting up a lot of big plays, and you can't have that happen, especially for a defense that prides itself on not giving up big plays. So that's the thing. Also, we know John Harbaugh talked about that secondary with Darius Washington being the guy moving forward. Kyle Hamilton praised his new safety mate, saying that, he's great to see Darius Washington get an opportunity, and he's such a hard worker, comes in and works really hard. And the big thing, I think the quote that has everybody talking this week, for the Ravens at least, was Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator over there in Los Angeles. Lamar was asked about his time with Greg Roman, and there was about a 4 to 5 second pause. And, I think that silence spoke louder than what his answer actually was. And look, he said it was good, had a lot of success, and it ended early. And, he won his first MVP in Greg Roman's system and this, that, and the other. But he was asked about what he thought, and he was just, you could tell he was like shit. He was like nodding his head back and forth. Like, how am I going to answer this question? I think that both parties had things that they wish the other would have done. And I think Lamar was certainly frustrated. And, I thought it was no fault of Lamar, as I thought that at the end, Greg Roman really was not putting Lamar in places and opportunities to succeed, which is what Todd Monken has done over his first couple of years in Baltimore. But that silence and that head nodding and head shaking around, that spoke louder than Lamar's answer. And so, look, Lamar said the right thing, right? He said it, and it was the right path to take. He's not going to go out there and air out Greg Roman. That's not really who Lamar is. Lamar's super respectful, and, it's one of the things that many like about Lamar, myself included there. But I know that a lot of people were like, oh, come on, Lamar, let's get a little messy. Get a little messy, Lamar, come on. But he's not that type of guy. We know that. So, look, big opportunity for the Ravens to go stick to their former coordinator. There are multiple different guys. We know the LA Ravens over there, multiple former players, coaches, executives. So, a game everybody's looking forward to, I'm sure. And crazy, because the Ravens have had all these primetime games so far this season. And, they're going to play on Christmas, and they're in the spotlight. And whenever you have Lamar Jackson, you are going to be in the spotlight. So we'll see how this all pans out for the Ravens. But again, we'll be monitoring the injuries and what ends up happening over the course of the next 24, 48 hours. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens, this bonus edition of the show. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. On the way out, hit that like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form as well. Coming up tomorrow, we'll do another bonus episode. We'll talk about what's happening because, again, these injuries are a really big point ahead of the matchup between the Ravens and the Chargers. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.